The wild thing of what we've been taught in Western culture is carbs are bad, fat is bad, meat is bad, like all these things. So what's going to be bad today? Is it going to be eggs? Is it going to be cheese?
Right.
Is it going to be carbs? Is it going to be sugar? The wild part about all these 5 regions that we mentioned is that they are very high in carbs, are almost 90 to 100% plant-based.
No matter what you've faced in your life, no matter what you've gone through, the regrets you may have for missed opportunities, those don't disqualify you. Rather, they uniquely qualify you. They uniquely qualify you because you can impart wisdom. You can impart lessons learned. You can speak into the lives of those following behind. We need you. The world needs you to step up and have vision again. Use your imagination. What can my life look like? Welcome to Next Third, Best Third. Hi, and welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm founder and your host, David Fenwick, and we've got a great guest today. Coming back, my dear friend, Stephanie Rounds. But before I get to Stephanie and our subject today, I just encourage you to do me a favor and click the like button and the subscribe button and share this with a friend of yours. By doing so, you're going to help us get out the message of living with intentionality so that you can truly make the next third your best third. So Stephanie, welcome back. So excited to have you.
Hooray!
Hooray, you're
Hooray.
here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
With a lot less hair.
Yeah, haircut looks great. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's in time for the summer.
That's right. In Round Rock, Texas, it gets hot.
Look, I'm from Vegas, which
Okay.
is desert.
Yeah.
It's like living in a blow dryer,
Yeah.
is what I like to tell people. And then I moved here to Central Texas, and I immediately apologized to the Lord for complaining about hot, dry heat. So off it came.
That's right. Now you got the hot, humid heat here.
My
right?
skin is happy,
That's
but
right.
my hair was not. So
That's
off
great.
it came.
That's
But
great.
yeah, thank you for having me back.
It's so great to have you. Now, that's a great segue talking about different areas because
Yes.
today what you and I are going to share and talk about and dig into is what is called blue zones.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I love this whole, the concept and the reality of blue zones.
Yeah.
And it came from a book, I think called Blue Zones
Yes.
by Dan Buettner.
Yes, it did.
It's a great book.
It did. And they actually, if you guys want to check it out, they have a Netflix special called Blue Zones where they do a mini series diving into the very specific areas, which we'll touch on today, describing and showing just everyday life of people who live in these blue zones. So it's a really, really, really fascinating, interesting concept knowing that you could be living in the same area in the world as these blue zones and not experiencing the effects of anti-aging, better health, that all these other people are experiencing.
Right. Because it's not just the region. It's way more than the
Oh,
region.
100%.
It's a people group and an
Yep.
attitude and
It's a
just
culture.
a culture and a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, after, I think I told you earlier, I can't wait. This evening, I'm going to go back and watch the Netflix special again.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, it's so well done.
Those kind of documentaries are always my favorite. I mean, I love people.
Mm-hmm.
Before I got married, I was convinced I was going to travel the world. And I did slightly. But that's still on my bucket list is to actually, a lot of these places were on my bucket list, are on my bucket list to still visit because of their culture, because of the people, because of the food. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm very big on that and some what a lot of people will call a foodie.
Mm-hmm.
But because people fascinate me. They just absolutely fascinate me.
You
And
bet.
so just watching, again, how these specific regions are so similar, but a lot of them are spread out and they don't intermingle,
Right.
which is really cool.
Well, that's the thing. They're all over the world, different places.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very different, obviously, culturally, and yet the similarities are the things that they share. And we're going to get into that,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what makes them the blue zones, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, what are the blue zones? How many are there?
I think there's 5. I have it all written down and pardon my brain. It's been a
No, it's
little
all
crazy
right.
this week, but I did for sure get my
I wrote them down too.
Yeah,
so
I got my
we-
notes. I got my notes. So yeah, there's 5 places that that were fitting the specific criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys want to also check this out, we'll put a link in your
bet.
video called bluezones.com. It's very easy to remember, and it gives you a breakdown of specifics about these places, which is really cool.
Right.
So Sardinia, which is in Europe.
Italy.
Yep.
Yep.
And then Icaria, Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Costa Rica. And then you have the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California.
I know. That's one that always caught me by surprise.
That
right?
one, 100%. But as soon as they said Seventh-day Adventist, I'm like, oh my gosh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And then, of course, Okinawa, Japan.
That's right. That's right.
So-
And there's different things, right, that, like I found what was interesting was in Nicoya, Costa Rica, one of the things that they have that's unique to them is that their water is high in magnesium and
Yes.
calcium, right?
Yes.
And so each one of these areas has some very, very unique things.
Oh, absolutely.
But talk a little bit about what they do, the foods that they eat in these different areas
Yeah.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So the wild thing of what we've been taught in Western culture is carbs are bad, right? Carbs are bad. Fat is bad. Meat is bad. Like all these things. So what's going to be bad today? Is it going to be eggs? Is it going to be cheese?
Right.
Is it going to be carbs? Is it going to be sugar? So I could speak on a lot of those things. The wild part about all these 5 regions that we mentioned is that they are very high in carbs and are almost 90 to 100% plant-based,
Right.
which means barely, if any, meat at all.
And see, that throws me off because as I've been training and working out these last few years, of course, we got the keto and we got the carnivore and the,
Right.
get your protein.
Right.
And then I go and I look at these and it's, like say, at least 90% plant-based. And my diet is nowhere near 90% plant-based.
Yes. Yeah, which is, it's counterintuitive. So then people are like, well, then I don't understand how you can hit your protein goals, how you can do all this. That goes back to their way of life, their culture.
Right.
That's not their main focus. So we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
I want to kind of focus on still what they consume. So if you look at it, there are a couple things that they do continuously on an everyday thing. They eat whole foods. They like to say they eat wholly whole, which means only whole foods. So nothing is processed. The only process they do is cutting and grinding themselves.
Right. I always say, it's when you say whole foods, we're talking about real food.
Real food.
Yeah.
Not the grocery store.
Right.
Sorry, ladies.
That's right.
If you're watching with your man, no.
Well, and you think about it, there's processed and ultra processed, but
Right.
most foods in our grocery stores are processed. Like if you
Right.
take tomatoes and you put them in a can,
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
a process. But they don't even do that.
No, they grow their own food.
Right.
You won't find anybody really going to a grocery store. They more often than not, they have farmers markets, local markets, where everybody comes together and brings what they have grown in their property, in their community. They have at least a half a cup to 1 cup of beans, of legumes a day,
Okay.
high in fiber, high in protein,
Right.
high in carbs.
Right.
They have most, like I said before, most of their diet is carbs. It's pasta almost every day. You have rice almost every day, beans almost every day, and then fresh whatever you have on hand in your garden.
Yeah.
So
But when you talk about things like pasta, when we think of pasta, we're talking about, again, highly processed flours that
Right.
have no nutritional value.
Right.
You're talking over there that they're literally rolling their own
Yes.
wheat, and they're making homemade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. And if you look at it, their soil is less depleted.
Right.
It's less overworked. It's because they add everything they have back in. So it's always turned over while they focus on getting in with their hands and bringing in the community. What do you have in yours that we need to switch? They understand the concepts of actually planting the right things at the right time and how to rotate them and all that.
Right.
Because their culture is around that. They
Right.
have very, I don't want to say strict, but they've built their lives around a culture of community, of what you have on hand is what you get to live with, and movement,
Right.
right? And what is that all comes down to? What's my purpose,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So
we'll go into all that. But
Yeah.
one of the things when you talked about their nutrients in their soil,
Yeah.
in the West here, in America in particular, because of mass agriculture and because of the usage that we have of trying to get the most and the
Right.
GMOs and everything like that, is our soil is almost depleted
Yeah.
of nutrients. So even when we go to our regular grocery store, the vegetables and things we're getting there lack true
Right.
nutrients, right?
yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, Well, actually, I want to kind of back up on that. I don't want to say unfortunately. What I want to say is that we've become more aware of what the mass production has taken away instead of really focusing on, okay, we're producing more, that's great, and it was great for the time being, but of course, too much of a good thing can sometimes turn into a bad thing.
Right.
And because we were so focused on getting all of it out, we weren't focused on what the cost was, because everything comes at a cost.
That's right.
And my generation, being the Zillennials or whatever you want to call it, those of us that were born in the early to mid 80s, growing up in the 80s to 90s, we were given so much processed stuff that we didn't know any different.
Sure.
But it still wasn't at the depletion that it is now. And we've seen what it's now doing to our kids. And it's made us kind of, I don't want to say regress, but go back to our grassroots. Go, what can we do to make this better? So,
Right.
for example, my kids, we have a huge compost pile in the backyard because Texas has a great weather to be able to compost.
Right. It's true.
And I'll be real honest, I don't have time to garden. I just don't have time to farm and garden. It's on my list. It's what I really, really want to do. And I probably will come this next school year, even probably during the summer, to teach my kids the importance of taking responsibility for something that you put your own hand to watch it, to nurture it, to watch it grow, to be able to harvest it and feel accomplished.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a big reason why those communities flourish so much. It's like they see the fruit of their labor. They see how it feeds into their community to bring life, to bring nutrients, to bring just this coming together of, look what we did.
Yeah.
Right? And knowing how can we put that back into our soil. So composting, great way to bring things back to the topsoil. You're also reducing waste. That most of the waste that is going into the garbage now is household food waste that doesn't need to be wasted, and it actually becomes toxic, and it actually works against the dumps.
Wow.
Which was really wild to me. So just doing a little part, like, okay, if you can't do a compost pile, see if you know somebody around you that can give them their scraps, or if somebody has chickens. Because again, I'm talking because we're in Central Texas, so almost everybody has something around them where they can grow community. Hey, I have this, what can you use for it? So we can work together to kind of adopt these concepts that these blue zones have.
It's interesting because maybe it's because I'm so into what health is for us, right? And nutrition. But I'm noticing more and more, and it's exciting to me. People having little home gardens, and here in Central Texas, of course, there's so many farmers markets, right,
Yes.
that are happening. And I've got a daughter and her husband, 2 little kids, and in their backyard they built some raised gardens,
Yeah.
and the kids are so excited, and what's cool is they're not trying to go overboard, but they're trying to say, hey, we're going to start teaching. Right, we're going to start being intentional, and that's such a big thing about it, is being intentional.
Yeah.
And another thing when we talk about food that we're growing, so many people think that eating organic and natural is expensive, and it's a little bit more expensive.
Right.
But when you measure it against the cost of medical care, right, the cost of what malnutrition costs you, right, it's actually more reasonable. Not at first,
Right.
but over the long time, right?
Right. Well, yes and no for me. So I have a big family. It's me, my husband, and my 4 kids. So to me, that's a bigger family. I only grew up with my 2 sisters and my parents.
Right.
But if you look at cost of living now to what it is, it's astronomically different. And unfortunately, we could be making more money this year than we've ever made in our life, but the grocery bills are so much higher.
That's right.
And what we need to do, so it's almost like it cancels itself out. All that to say, though, when you do bring it home and you do use that intentionality of what can I do, Lord, what do you have for me, to be able to create an environment where we take responsibility back for what you've given us. What is it? It talks about in the word about how the earth is groaning for the sons and daughters to be revealed. Right. And so they know it. The earth literally knows who we are. And so I think that even comes back with stewarding the earth.
Right.
Going, thank goodness you're finally tilling me again. That's what I've been waiting for. I've been dry and hard. Just rake me up a little bit. Like, put the seed, put your dream, put it in me so I can help you grow it. It's not going to do anything in your hand. A farmer can hold seeds in their hand and it's not going to do anything. It's dead in your hand.
Right.
It has to go to the soil. I love when Rita Springer was talking about that. The Lord revealed that to her, going, a farmer has seeds in his hand and it's not doing anything. They're dead little things that don't have anything going on with them. You have to plant your seed where it dies and the soil takes over and the nutrients and all that stuff so you can actually see it grow. You have to let it go. And I know it can kind of get way out there, but when it comes to taking responsibility back and saving a little bit of money in your pocket, is it more expensive in the long run? Yeah. So dialing it back, what I do personally is I have to weigh what am I going to spend more on and what am I not going to spend more on. The family that may be making $500,000 a year and only has one kid can probably afford, if they're wise and not in a lot of debt, to buy 100% organic from the butcher down, do all the great things that we all attain to do, right? That I would love to do. And one day I will be able to. But I'm going through a season now where, okay, Lord, what can I do to still help my family and do what I can do, and then you'll get us there. So for me personally, what I usually do is I'll go what's called, and I think I had hit on this a little bit the last time, is the clean 15 and the dirty dozen list. And I weigh what's in season, what's not. I almost always buy in season because it's always going to be cheaper then, because everything's in mass production. I go off of those two lists because the dirty dozen are what's going to absorb all those pesticides and you're not going to get it out regardless.
Right.
They generally stay the same every year. Some things change a little bit, but they've stayed pretty much the same the past couple of years. Yeah. And then the clean 15, which means it doesn't matter if you get it store, brand, organic, whatever, the pesticides aren't going to be that big of a deal. So for me personally, that's how I weigh on produce, at least what I can and cannot buy.
Sure.
Or what I feel I should or should not buy.
You know, that's a good segue into kind of leaning back into the blue zones and talking about what do they eat and what do they don't. Right. And so when you think about Sardinia, Italy, you know, what do they eat? Just a few things that you know of that at the top of their list.
So Sardinia, and it's wild, their one thing is they have a glass of wine a day. Yeah. At 5 p.m.
And out of all these blue zones, them and I think maybe Costa Rica are the only ones that have any alcohol.
Everybody else doesn't. Yeah. So they do. And then I believe it's meat, which is funny because out of all of them, I think they're the only ones, plus Costa Rica, are the ones that eat meat. Right. And it's usually pork, which is another
crazy.
Right. And it's wild because if you look at so many people have so many stances on pork. And then, of course, pasta. Pasta's huge. So I know those are the top main ones that got me, and I'm like, that's wild.
Another thing that they do, though, is like them in Greece, a lot of olives.
Yes.
Olives and olive oil.
And nuts.
And nuts, that's true.
They have at least 1 to 2 handfuls of nuts a day.
That's right.
Yep.
So that's really good. So when you go to Okinawa, of course, now that's totally different. What do they focus
Okinawa,
on?
Since that's in Japan, they have fresh fish, seafood. Seafood that is, well... See, now you can go back and forth on this one too because of the nuclear fission plant that went down there. And so that's kind of a touchy thing. But they focus a lot on rice, a lot on seafood, and it's fresh vegetables, things that they grow. Right. And they move a lot there. They also have the concept where it's called the 80% rule, where they sit and they eat, and then as soon as they feel about 80% full, they stop eating.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
I love that, where we have these all-you-can-eat buffets here in the United States, and it's what they get to about 8/10 of the way through, and they say, that's it. We're done.
It makes it so you don't overeat, because here what we don't do is we aren't present. We like to eat in front of the TV. We like to stand up eating and multitask, and we don't.
We eat on the run. Yeah. We eat in cars. Yeah. We eat at our desks.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And bringing everything back to the table is what I think the next movement is, to bring family back together. And you hear a lot of people preach about this. And that's what the Lord's working on, though, is he's going to start with the church. He's going to start with us as a body. And community is huge. And what is community? Community is family.
Right.
So the 80% rule is it's going to prevent you from overeating. It's going to make you be present and aware of what you're eating, how you're eating, and then also who you're with. Because Japan is very much about intentionality.
Yes.
I mean, they all are, but that culture specifically is very much about being present and intentional. So,
I find it interesting. So I'm really glad one of the blue zones is in the United States, right? Otherwise, it'd be like, oh, that's them. That's out
Right.
there. We can't live this way. But Loma Linda, California. What do you know about that blue zone?
that's the one that threw me off. I'll be real honest. Little backstory. I lived in Costa Mesa, California, Orange County, right on the coast. For a good 2 years. That's where I went to college down there. And you were known as granola central. And what I mean by granola is the modern day hippie. Everything is natural from the earth. You don't do anything that's like not earth given. And so it doesn't really surprise me now that I look back on it because of just the attitude, but it's really specifically a certain group in Loma Linda that we mentioned earlier, the Seventh-day Adventists. And I don't know too much in the background enough to be able to be a professional to speak on this because I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist. But I do know, again, that they are very intentional and very strict on what they do and how they do it. So that one was the one where it threw me off because it's in Stress City with a lot of pollution, a lot of stress pollution, a lot of fads. That's where a lot of the fads start and become popular.
Very expensive.
Very
place to
expensive.
live, right?
Very expensive. The up and coming thing always happening, but you have this group of people that's in the midst of all this thriving.
Right. Which is back to your earlier point saying that you can be in the blue zone, right, in the region and not be healthy, and be struggling. One thing about them is that I know they don't take any alcohol or any caffeine.
Nope.
I know they eat a lot of nuts, a lot of vegetables, very, very little meat.
Yeah.
But again, I think for them, it's way more than diet.
Oh, 100%.
Which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
These what they call the Power 9 principles, right? But it's interesting to me too because the blue zones, they live healthier, right? They live healthier. They live longer. Part of the thing about the blue zones is the number of centenarians.
Yeah.
People who are 100 and older.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy how
That's
many
wild.
there are, right? So they're living healthier, they're living longer, and it's also they have little chronic disease.
Right.
That's why. And the chronic disease is tied so much to our Western diet.
Inflammation,
right? And that comes from the stuff that we're eating that they're not. So real quick before we go into the Power 9s, what are some of the key things that all 5 of these blue zones do not eat?
So they do not eat meat, like I told you. If they do, it's very minimal. And it's at most 5 times a month, which means what, like once a week?
Yeah.
They do not eat processed sugar. At most, any type of sugar that they consume that's outside of naturally occurring vegetables and fruits is, I believe, like a couple teaspoons.
It's 7.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
They have 7 teaspoons of sugar a day from what I've read, but almost all that comes from things like fruit, right? No processed sugar whatsoever. And yet in America, and you know this better than I, but I was just reading about it, is the average American takes in about 17 teaspoons of processed sugar a day.
Yeah.
In the children, I just read this today, on average, the children are 28 to 34 teaspoons of sugar.
Yeah, and it's all hidden.
Yeah.
It's all hidden because of, number one, people's lifestyle, what they're buying to accommodate that lifestyle of we need it right now. We're not slowing down and making things by hand anymore, which I have nothing against. I buy certain things that are already processed too. But it's hidden in like ketchup. It's hidden in pasta sauce. It's hidden in cereal, which everybody kind of already knows that. Most of the kids are going to want to eat sugar cereal.
Mm-hmm.
It's hidden even in like pizza. It's hidden in chicken nuggets. Like just anything, of course, and everything I'm naming is processed.
Right.
You can't get anything that has added sugar to it without it being processed, which is another thing that they don't eat. They stick to the phrase wholly whole food. So
Right.
WHOLLY, WHOLE foods. And so that makes a big difference in everything because of how it then is broken down in your body.
Yeah. And again, it goes mostly that ultra processed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I wanted to swing back to you saying, as a family, you have to make choices what you're going to eat,
Right.
what you're not going to eat. But within that, like say, not everything's going to be organic,
No.
not everything's going to be fresh and all this kind.
Right.
But you can make a choice of reading labels and figuring
Yes.
out where is the hidden sugars,
Right.
because like say that is all done to get kids addicted, they
100%.
just, and that, to me, I think if we can make our choices as wise as possible,
Yeah.
because, I don't buy a lot of processed food, but I still do some,
Oh, for sure.
cans, like I say, canned
Yeah.
stuff, that's a process.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I'll buy a frozen pizza every now and then that I like to eat has like decent ingredients in
Sure.
it, but I'm not going to be over here making my own pizza dough with 4 kids saying they're hungry every 2 seconds. It's just not going to happen.
You don't have time.
No.
So
I mean, I could if I wanted to make it a whole thing, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a homeschool mom, and I bless all of you that are called to that. Although I have my certification and my degree in baking and pastry, not my favorite thing to do with my kids.
Right.
And I mean, y'all want a little insight into Stephanie Rounds? If I'm going to bake cookies, I'm going to do it without my kids. Or I'm going to let my 12-year-old do it because she's into that and she's now old enough to do that. But I clean as I go, and having people's fingers, I don't do well with that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you
Well,
pick
funny.
and choose your battles, right?
I was speaking to some people the other day, and we're talking about, eating real food and what to avoid. And I said, listen, cookies are fine when they're made at home and you're using real butter,
Yeah.
real flour, you use real ingredients. There's a whole big difference between your chocolate chip cookies at home and your
Yeah.
Chips Ahoy that you buy in
Oh,
the
for sure.
grocery store, right?
100%. I mean, a lot of it, again, goes down to processed
Right.
hydrogenated oils, which
That's right.
that's the one thing that the USDA did take away is they've now removed hydrogenated trans fat. You really aren't going to find a lot of trans fat anymore in
That's
any
right.
of the processed foods that you would buy, as if you would back in the 90s when I was growing up. But if I ever tell anybody, I'm like, hey, real butter over margarine, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do Crisco.
No.
Do bacon fat. Like
do bacon fat.
Yes, absolutely.
That's
There's
it.
other things that you can do. It's like taking the product from soup to nuts. Like use the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to go get it. You can do
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Well, we could spend a lot of time on food, but I really want to get into the power principles,
Yeah.
right? The 9 power principles, and then out of those 9, there's 4 key ones.
Yeah.
So what are the 9?
So I'm going to read them from my list again too, because it's really awesome.
Because these, even though they're different in what they eat, even though they're different in the regions
Right.
that they are, they all share these 9.
Oh, 100%. That's the one thing that he said. These are, again, what we call the power 9. These all, although they're completely separated from each other and mostly don't know about each other at all, they all follow these exact 9 principles. They move naturally,
Yeah.
which means they're moving all day long. They do something that's going to cause them to get up and move. Whether it be gardening, whether it be taking a walk from the store to home, everything's usually within biking or walking distance. They're going to do something to move naturally. The next one is purpose.
Purpose. I love that.
Why am I doing this? They have such a sense of, and the other one is community. So those two, I always look as they're going to go one and the other. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So we're going to do everything we can to build and grow our community by working together. If you fail, we fail. So they always have that mindset. Another thing is stress management. So downshifting, somebody might call it. And so what they'll do is Seventh-day Adventists, pray. Some of them, Japan, meditate. So, I mean, there's different things that they may do. The Sardinians drink a glass of wine. I mean, it's whatever they can do. Everybody's going to have some type of stress in their life. It's what do you do to manage that?
Right.
So that's another thing. The 80% rule. This one is probably my favorite, and it's probably the hardest one for everybody to come to. It's highly practiced in Japan. where they will be present, they will sit, and they will only eat until they're 80% full. And that allows your brain to catch up with your stomach. And
That's good.
it also makes them, like I said before, present. They also, what you'll see in all of these regions is that they will eat their largest meal in the beginning of the day and their lightest meal at the end of the day. And after they're done eating that light meal, they won't eat anymore. They don't snack. They just don't snack.
That's good.
Which is huge, right?
You know, there's a lot of talk nowadays about intermittent fasting.
Yes.
And one of the ways that I just decided, the way I'm going to have intermittent fasting is I eat my last meal of the day, usually around 6 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And then I don't eat again till 8 in the morning.
Yep.
So I'm going 14 hours. To me, that's my fasting period.
100%. And I actually, ironically do the same thing just because as a busy mom, I'm like, I'm exhausted by the time I'm done feeding. And I've never really liked eating late anyway. So we try to have dinner done, finished eating by 6:30, 6:45 at the latest. Because on a normal school day schedule, my kids are in bed or are done. The kitchen is what I call closed at 7 p.m. They're brushing their teeth at 7:15. They're getting showers and in bed by 7:45.
There you go.
It's just, they do well on a schedule and I do well on a schedule because we get up so early in the morning. Our day starts so early that it doesn't make sense to me to go beyond that and then put more stress on them. Plus, it allows our bodies to get into the normal circadian rhythm of rise up when the sun rises up and go down when the sun goes down. So I just normally have lived my lifestyle the past 7 years where I don't generally eat past 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I then don't eat until maybe like between 7 and 10 the next morning.
That's right. So you're getting in you're just like me. You're getting that fasting period in.
And you need that because your body was never meant to eat continuously.
Right. Which is such a problem here in America, right? I mean, people who snacking late at night on the computer or whatever they're doing, and you know, they're eating till 11 o'clock, you know, taking something in, and then they get up the next morning and they hit their coffee, and unfortunately they'll probably throw in something like a Pop-Tart or a donut or you know, something like that.
Again, just way that we've all designed our lives, but and nothing against people that doing that. It's just you have to decide what you're worth, not what you're worth, but what is worth sacrificing for the long run, and if you really look at it as a sacrifice. So again, when I work with people, it's a lifestyle change. Yeah. But so that's one of the big things. So the other thing is that they call it plant slant, and what I mean by that is that the base of their diet is plants. Right. Beans, legumes, plants, soy, lentils, all that fun stuff. Wine at 5. They all have. Well, really, the only two places they have some type of wine with their meal at the end of the day for high antioxidants, for stress relief, whatever it is, but they don't ever drink more than that couple of ounces. Right.
Very moderate alcohol.
Yes, very, very, and it's very little.
Right.
The next one is, again, like I said earlier, community. They need to belong to something. And this is one of my favorite ones. The last two are, I think they could be one and the same, but family first. They always put their family first. Right. They have their generations live, if not with them, then close to them. And it's always been that way. If you look at that, they've never lived away from each other for centuries.
You know, I had a mother who lived with my sister for quite some time. Then she lived with me and my wife. And then she ended up living with my brother and his wife. Yeah. And she lived to age 99, but she spent the last, 18 years of her life with us. Yeah. And it was such a special time. It wasn't always easy. No. But I'm so glad we did it, so glad we did it, because again, we have this mentality sometimes of out of sight, out of mind, we just, honoring family is such a key part of healthy living and having good relationships, good mental health, emotional health.
Well, why does the Lord say, honor your mother and father and you'll be blessed with a long life?
Right. There you go.
Look, I use that on my children when they're really getting at me. I'm like, it says in the Lord to honor your mother and father if you want to live long.
That's right.
But although I say it kind of like irritated in the moment, but it really is true because there's beauty in that. Like the Lord knew what he was doing. When he put you with the family that you had. Now, whatever happened, if it was a negative experience, whatever, things happen. But knowing that there's that that spiritual law that's attached to that, it makes sense when you look at these people who have chosen to keep their family close.
Right.
Right. And then the last one, of course, is choose their tribe. And what that was explained to me was that they have of about 5 friends that they do life with.
Mm-hmm.
They have that inner circle that keeps them accountable, that keeps them healthy, that keeps them going. And it all ties back again to community. Like
That's
most of these things have to do with community.
That's right.
Like, don't even look at the food. I mean, yeah, the food aspect, of course, you need food for fuel for your life. But if you look at the main thing of this, it's all about family and community.
You know, in Next Third Best Third, one of the big 5 areas of decay is relationships.
Yeah.
And I speak about that all the time, and how men, as they get older, men tend to get isolated, right?
Right.
They're not networking anymore. They're not building relationships
Right.
they're not building anything anymore. They have the empty nest syndrome that they experience, which is unique. A woman will stay connected much more than a
absolutely.
man will.
Yep.
And so you get these men, and I find it all the time, who their sphere of influence or their social circle
Right.
is almost non-existent, you know. And when I see that, and I see how one of the power 9s is your social circle. Who's your tribe? Who are you really in relationship with? And you're being intentional about it.
Oh,
To
yeah.
me, that is such a key.
Well, I mean, again, I'll go back to Proverbs. It's like, be careful who you surround yourself with, because that's who you're going to end up being.
That's right.
And although we want to say that we're the light of the world, we are the light of the world. But again, who you surround yourself with is going to shape who you are.
No question.
100%. And it's going to affect you regardless if you're a leader or a follower.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to affect you, your character-wise. You're going to start talking and acting like each other. It's just
Right.
how you were made to be. You weren't
Right.
made to be alone. I mean, the Lord himself is 3 in 1.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes us think that we're more special to be by ourselves?
That's right. Plus, it gives us the opportunity to invest in people, right?
Yeah.
And there's such a purpose that you get when you're investing
Yeah.
in somebody else. It's not just that what you're getting from them, not that you're just gleaning from them, but you're actually pouring into
Right.
them, right?
Right.
And when you do that, at least I've found when I'm pouring into men,
Yeah.
other men, it stirs up my imagination. It stirs up all the sense of what could be, the possibilities.
Absolutely. Well, and I do the same. So when I am helping a mom with figuring out these deficiencies that a kid may be having because their attitude sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, what is their diet? What are you feeding them? What are you not feeding them? Let's add in this thing to see if it helps. And to see when I work with this mom who's frazzled, okay, what do you need too? What can I do to help you? Is there something in your schedule that we can adjust? And then watching me being able to pour into these people that are like, hey, I see what you have. And I'm sitting here going, I really don't have much, but I'll give you my experience. But I'm going to point you back to Jesus every single time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can do.
Right.
But watching when I do get this revelation from the Lord, and I'll be sitting there and Holy Spirit will be like, say this to them. I go, and in my mind, I'm going, I have no idea what the heck that is. And I'm going to have to research that later, but I'll say it. They'll do it and it works. And I'm like, God, you are so good. I have to research it going, I am so glad that you are more knowledgeable than I am, because I have no idea what the heck that is.
Right.
Jesus, please make it work, because if it doesn't, we're in a lot of trouble.
But see, you have a relationship with somebody where you can
Yes.
do that, right?
It builds
And
a trust.
It does. And then the other thing that you mentioned was, they might be frazzled, right? They're having trouble with their, in your case, right? Some of your friends might be struggling with their kids.
Yeah.
And that goes back to stress relief,
Yep.
stress management,
Yeah.
right? I don't like stress management. I like the whole sense of tending to it, right?
Yeah. It's like a garden.
Yeah, that's right. Because I just sent out an email to my tribe about stress and how there's bad stress and good stress,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
right? But
Yeah.
stress is needed in life.
Yes.
It's what's your perspective about it, right?
Yes. 100%.
Like if you're going through something, the question isn't to say, why am I going through this? It's like, what's going to come through this? What do
Right.
I need to learn?
Right.
How's this going to affect me, right? Or I ask the question, God, where are you in the middle of this?
Yeah, and that's
You
great
know?
that you asked that question, because, again, listening to a podcast I was listening to earlier this week, I think it was still the Rita Springer podcast, is instead of asking the Lord to deliver her from this season, the Lord's like, why don't you just invite me into this season?
That's right.
Why don't you just let me sit here with you?
And that's how you de-stress, right? That's
Right.
how you break that bond of stress where it's no longer negative,
Right.
but you're sitting there saying, wait a minute, I go to the gym, I stress my muscles, right?
Yeah.
You break those down to rebuild. You know, you're in cardiovascular stress, right? You're running.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you're stressing your body, but it's to get your heart healthy and your lungs healthy.
Right.
So, you know, when we look at the things that we're going through, the question is really, where are you in this?
Right.
How am I supposed to react? And what are you going to do in my life through it, right? And
Yeah.
you just take that stress and you turn it around. So, and I think
Yeah.
going in and having relationships with people, you're able to give them perspective.
Well, and that's the thing is like you only know so much, you only see so much.
Right.
So the whole purpose of having your tribe, like these blue zone people have, is to see your weakness, to see your blind spot. You're not supposed to see it all. You're not supposed to understand it all. Somebody's always going to have a better answer than you. Somebody's going to also always know more than you. It's just a matter of, I know what I know, but I don't know what you know. And let me lean on you on the thing that I know that I'm not good at or I
Right.
have a weakness in, because that's what creates a very strong community. It's
Yeah.
what the body is. You know, not everybody can be a toe. Not everybody can be a head. Not everybody can be a heart. It's not what we were made to do.
Right.
And even the most insignificant, what we feel may be the least anointed person is actually the one that we need the most.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I think
That's
bringing
so
that,
good.
yeah, just bringing that mentioning back. And a lot of that ties into, again, the generations being close. We've lost that, thinking one generation is better than the next, or like these little hooligans don't know what they're doing. Like, how do they know that we had so much in the older days? But it's like, wait, you guys still have something that we need.
Absolutely.
So
well,
let's
that,
build it,
that
grab.
goes back to community, right?
Right.
Community and family and how it's all, and even who's your tribe.
Right.
We need each other,
Right.
right? We need each other. And that's
Yeah.
a big part of Next Third Best Third is to stir people up and say, hey, we need you.
Yeah.
Use your imagination again. Dream again. What can this look like? Who can I pour into?
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
giving
Purpose.
them a purpose. So it all ties in, right? So
Yeah.
the top 4 out of the 9 were movement,
Yep.
purpose,
Yep.
community, and
Family.
family. So good.
Yeah, isn't that
So
good?
good. That's so good. You know, I look at where in my observation here in the U.S. is the 3 top areas where people struggle the most are movement, the eating wisely part, and then the stress. You know, but I think now after we've been talking, I think community.
100%.
I think they really struggle with community.
We've lost that. And I talked to my husband about this a lot, especially after having my kids. And my midwife is Venezuelan. So she comes from a totally different background than
Right.
what we've experienced. So having a midwife and doing home births, I was able to experience that community, which gave me a hunger to be able to teach and bring that back to our Western culture, is we've lost that. And I speak to this because I'm a woman, so this is what I know. This is what I've experienced. So I'll speak to my experience in that after you have a baby, your body's gone through the equivalent of a car wreck and you need time to recover. The top time for a vaginal birth in the United States for time off work for women is 4 weeks.
Wow.
For a C-section, I think it's 4 to 6 weeks. For a C-section, it's 6 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks for major surgery. Not to mention your body changing and your connection with your child.
Right. I was going to say the need of the child.
Right.
Right.
You're expected to turn around and go and do, right? So yeah, no wonder we're stressed. No wonder we're having issues with babies thriving and with premature infantile death, with maternal death, because we've lost that culture. And if you look at these other cultures, although they may be in the poverty, they're thriving in their maternal cultures because these communities, these tribes rally around, and you're in bed for a good 3 months with your child. These wives, these midwives, these women, your tribe come and take care of you. They feed you. They help you bathe. They take care of your home and your other kids. Like, where is that here?
Right.
Where is that community?
Right.
We don't have it. Or if we do, it's slowly coming back. People are becoming more aware of it. So that's one of my big soapboxes, one of my big dreams is to be able to set a community up to where women can have at least a plan in front of them to say, these are the people that I have assigned that I know I can lay back on in the next 3 months. Although I may have to go to work, I know that somebody's going to be there to help me. And so that's one thing that I hope that the United States will change eventually is just maternal care.
Well, and also, you know, we're reaching a place where on one end, through social media and everything that's available, we're isolating more and more and more. We've replaced it with a false community.
Right.
However, I think on the other side is the hunger for reality.
Yes.
And the hunger for connection
100%.
is so strong. You
Yep.
know, when I was doing a research on the blue zones, a little bit I looked at was, there was a time in the United States where when it was pretty much an agricultural,
Oh, yeah.
people would go and they'd harvest together. They'd
Yes.
help each other and get the harvest in, right? The barn raisings.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. I grew up in a small town in Illinois, and all the business people, they would help each other at
Yeah.
different times if something happened. So, that whole thing of being interconnected and carrying one another's burdens.
Yes.
Scripture talks about carrying one another's burdens.
Yep.
That's not meaning that you're getting into the pit with them, right? But it means that you're extending a hand, right? You're trying to lift them out. You're trying to help them, and during their time of getting back on their feet or whatever you're filling in the blanks. You're filling in where they need help.
Yeah, you're like, it goes back to the whole, you're going to have something I need and I have something you need. And it's seeing the whole seed grow. It's seeing your purpose fulfilled in front of you. You're pouring everything out that you've been poured into by the Lord. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They're like, I need.
Right.
The Lord's like, well, I can only give you so much until you empty yourself. Like, empty yourself so I can fill you up more. And I think we have a different mindset, thinking I need more. And it goes back to the orphan mindset, right? And I heard this said once too, which is wild, is that if you continue to walk in the orphan spirit, you're eventually going to kill your mother, your father, and your brother and your sister. Because in a more orphan mindset is, there's never going to be enough for me. So if you get blessed, you're anointed, I'm never going to get it.
Yeah.
Which is very scary and very dangerous when you really think about it. And it comes back again to the enemy isolating and the lies of your origin and who you are.
That's right. And it's interesting you said that fear of not having enough. That is actually the definition of greed. Greed isn't wanting more and more and more. Nope. That's gluttony. Right? Not being filled. Right. But having a fear of not having enough. That's greed. We talk about corporate greed and the greedy of the wealthy. You can be impoverished. You can be poor 100%. And have a fear of not being, having enough. I was thinking about community, and when you go back to the foundations of the early church, what did it say? They said that they shared everything in common. Everything. Right? They broke bread daily in each other's homes. If anybody needed something, someone would sell something.
I'm going to say they sold their property.
Right. So that everybody flourished. And that's not socialism.
No. And the ones that lied about selling their property got swallowed up and killed right there. So you want to talk about a fun story in the New Testament? That's right. That Old Testament stuff came up in the New Testament. Right. Don't test the Holy Spirit.
Well, so go kind of finish up here at the blue zone. So you look at 5 distinct areas. Yeah. And in these areas, they share 9 components at least. Yeah. Right. And things like movement. Yeah. We have a sedentary America. Yep. We have America that, I don't know what the percentage of obesity, but I know it's approaching 50%.
It's high.
We've got a percentage of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and now they're even calling type 3 diabetes is your mental, right, Alzheimer's. Yep. Things like that. That's up there close to 20% now in this country. And we have a sedentary people. We have people who eat ultra-processed foods. We eat too much sugar. Yeah. We are isolated. We're not really investing in family, things like that, and not investing in community. So the changes, right? The changes. Give me, if you could give somebody advice, like 2 things, 3 things, I'd say that you could do right now to start changing, what would those be?
Oh, gosh.
Some practical things.
Oh, absolutely. Turn off your TV and your phone at least an hour or 2 before you go to bed.
Very good.
Pick up a book and read. Pray. Listen to worship music on your CD or something. I don't know. But turn off whatever blue light you can, because that's going to stimulate your body to produce the melatonin that you need to actually get a really good night's sleep, which is going to produce the way for your body to reduce stress and take down that chronic inflammation.
Right. And real quick, we didn't say if there was a number 10, I would put sleep.
100%.
Quality sleep is such a key to a healthy life, a
100%.
long life. But okay,
That's where your body heals itself.
that's right. So number one is turn off your phone and your
The
computer.
stimulants.
Yeah.
And next one would be drink more water. I know I said that last time, but in order for your body to actually get the kind of nutrients it needs and to get rid of the extra toxins, you want to also get rid of a little bit extra weight. Drink more water.
Yeah.
It's going to flush all that out.
I think the last time you were here, we talked about water and we talked about some other things. And I started putting apple cider vinegar in my water, right?
Yeah.
First thing in the morning, I have water with apple cider vinegar. Then I have my second glass of water, you know, and it's a great way to start the day.
Oh, yeah. I do mine with lemon juice, a little bit of soul water. Soul water is just, you take about a quarter cup of pink salt or good quality sea salt and you let it develop in water. And it tastes like the sea.
Yeah.
But it has all the minerals and everything you need, like electrolytes right there. So I just throw a little teaspoon of that in my quart of water with lemon juice, collagen, and grated ginger, and I drink that in the morning every morning.
Sounds good.
And the last thing was figure out a way to put a little bit more movement, even if that means like every 5 minutes. If you're working at your desk, every 5 minutes, and if you can't do that because you work in an office, every, I don't know, like 20, 30 minutes, get up and go take a lap around the office. Go outside and if weather permitting, go take a walk around the block. Park your car further away from the grocery store.
It's
I
so
know,
practical.
right? I know people talk about this all the time, and we've become so obsessed with hitting our steps and all this stuff. I don't even wear a smartwatch anymore because it became too obsessive, stressful. And I'm like, what's the point? This is going against everything I need to do. I need to just get more movement in. Play on the floor if you have young kids. Like find a way to interact with them.
Yeah,
But also listen to your body. If your body says rest, you need to rest.
that's right.
So
That's right. It's funny because I made a decision years ago that I park as far away as possible, right? In a hotel or in a mall or at the airport. I always use the stairs. I don't use escalators, you know, things like that. And that's just a simple way of keeping your body moving, you know?
yeah, easy things. I mean, they even if you feel like, oh, I can't get away from work, whatever, buy a little treadmill that you can walk on while you work. Like get a standing desk. If you want to make an investment, get a little walking treadmill to put under your standing desk and walk while you work.
That's good.
Like, or when you're on a phone call, go start pacing your halls up and down. You don't have to sit and take the phone call. Like there's little micro movements that you can do that'll help make your body move.
You don't have to be going to the gym all the time, even though you should. You know, we need to exercise, you know, be intentional. But again, movement. What does movement look like?
Yeah.
You know,
It could be it's something as simple as like sometimes even for me, like I'll find myself fidgeting, right? And that's still movement. And what movement does, it just tells your body, oh, let's start getting the blood flowing. Let's move all these toxins out. Let's not be stagnant.
Yeah.
It's like a pond that has water in it that's not been moved. And it's going to get gross and stagnant. Mosquitoes are going to grow. Like all the gross things. You want your body to move.
Yeah.
So
This is so good.
yeah.
This is fun. Thanks so much for coming today.
Yeah.
This is good. I can't wait till we get to the next one, you know. So obviously Stephanie's going to be a regular, you know.
Yes.
We love having her here. So again, thank you all for joining us. Hit that like button, subscribe, share this, and we'll see you next time on Next Third Best Third.